the White House says President Biden will meet next week with China's President Xi Jinping.
The meeting will happen Wednesday during the Asia-Pacific Economic Summit in San Francisco. The high-stakes face-to-face meeting comes at a time of rising tensions between the U.S. and China on both economic and military grounds.
White House correspondent Haley Bull joins us now from Washington with more. Haley, good morning.
Hey, good morning. This will mark a significant moment amid the efforts to stabilize the relationship between the two major countries. The leaders have not met for a year as tensions have escalated, but a recent series of high-level meetings between U.S. and Chinese officials, as well as working-level consultations, have paved the way for what are expected to be in-depth discussions in the Bay Area. Now, the administration is also level-setting with the nature of the complex relationship. Senior administration officials outlining goals of managing competition and really honing in on keeping communication open. And now, since the leaders last met in Bali, relationships have seen both military and economic tensions, while Xi Jinping has sought to increase China's global influence and role, while the U.S. has worked to deepen relationships in the Indo-Pacific and invested more domestically as it pursues a strategy of competition but not conflict. Now, senior administration officials here are underscoring this does not mark a change in the U.S.'s approach to China and that nothing is off the table in these discussions. Officials are expecting President Biden to press, quote, assertively on military-to-military lines in particular after China closed them following then Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan last year and viewing the discovery of the Chinese spy balloon over the continental U.S. as an example of the need for these lines. And officials are also expecting discussions on cross-strait issues, particularly Taiwan, on North Korea, and concerns over their relationship with Russia as Russia continues its war in Ukraine, and as well as on Iran, with President Biden expected to urge Xi Jinping to make clear that they do not want to see Iran escalate tensions in the Middle East. We're also expecting additional topics like those wrongfully detained, countering narcotics, and economic issues. Officials really seeing this moment of diplomacy as a chance to clear up misperceptions, as well as find areas where there could be common interest to work together. And now President Biden has been clear he has hoped for this meeting. It is one that has been highly anticipated. Listen to what he said just last month.
China is having their own internal and external difficulties right now. China's economic growth is stagnant compared to what it was. China has engaged in activities that Russia and many other activities that others have engaged in terms of intimidation and dealing with other countries. But the fact is that I have met with Xi Jinping more than any other world leader has. I've had over 68 hours of private meetings, just he and I, with simultaneous interpreters.
Now, China's ambassador to the U.S. said relations had hit their lowest point, but there were positive indicators of stabilization just this week. Now, in the weeks leading up to this, Biden and other top administration officials met with China's foreign minister here in D.C. and Secretary Yellen meeting with the vice premier just this week ahead of APEC, that large economic forum in the Bay Area. And the leaders are entering this summit as Biden grapples with multiple global challenges, with Russia's war in Ukraine, Israel's war against Hamas at this point, as well as managing those tensions in the Indo-Pacific, while China is dealing with its own economic turmoil at home. Listen.
The United States has no desire to decouple from China. A full separation of our economies would be economically disastrous for both of our countries and for the world. We seek a healthy economic relationship with China that benefits both countries over time.
And this will be the 7th interaction for President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping since Biden took office, but again, the first in-person meeting in a year for the two leaders. Alex?
All right, White House correspondent Haley Bull reporting. Haley, thank you. Scripps News is an official media partner of the APEC CEO Summit. We'll have multiple reporters on the ground there in San Francisco starting this weekend as world leaders come to America. That coverage all next week right here on Scripps News.
And joining us now with more context on the 2023 APEC Summit is Gordon Chang, a former counsel to the U.S. law firm Paul Weiss in Shanghai, China. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
We have the same initials, so it's hard to distinguish.
Yes.
I still think it's me, but it's definitely Alex.
And he is also the author of 2 books on China, The Coming Collapse of China and The Great U.S.-China Tech War. Gordon, welcome back to Morning Rush. Good to see you again. So President Biden and President Xi are set to meet during APEC. Why is there so much anticipation around this meeting? And how is it going to impact U.S.-Chinese relations? What about this timing is so important right now?
Well, the timing is important because China is engaged in clearly unacceptable behavior around the world, and its behavior has deteriorated since the President Biden and Xi Jinping met last, which was at Bali. I don't know what President Biden can say that hasn't been said over the last 3 decades. So I'm not sure that this meeting is in the interest of the United States. We're Americans, so we think that if we can talk to somebody, we can convince them that it's in their interest to do what is responsible. But clearly, we've been trying that now for decades since the Cold War, and China's behavior has worsened, and especially in recent times.
And will you talk about, in terms of the summit, some of the top issues that will be discussed there as it relates to U.S.-China policy?
The top issues are the same as they've been over decades, with the addition of climate change in the Biden administration, which wasn't important in the previous administration. But apart from that, we're talking about the same things, except that China's behavior has become more blatant. So, for instance, we see the provision of lethal aid to Russia for the war in Ukraine. We also see China supporting Iran, which is able then to support Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi militia. So we really got a point where at this moment, China has become a much more destructive actor on the world stage.
So with all that being said then, what would you say, I guess, if you can rank, on a scale of 1 to 10, which is good to bad, what is our connection with China right now, given all that you just said?
Well, I think that the unfortunate thing is, I think our relations with China are pretty much at the lower end of the rating, and that's because of what Beijing has been doing. So, for instance, it has been backing the fentanyl gangs that have been selling the precursor chemicals to the Mexican cartels. The Chinese regime is fully supporting those gangs, which couldn't operate in China's total surveillance state without state backing. China's continuing to steal U.S. intellectual property. China is trying to provoke a war in Second Thomas Shoal in the South China Sea. And the list goes on and on. And what the United States is just misconceived, that we think that we can have relations with a militant regime that ultimately its objective is to rule, not dominate, but to rule the world. Xi Jinping has been using these imperial era notions where Chinese emperors believed they had the right and the obligation to rule the world. So I don't know how you can coexist with a group like that. And if we don't understand China in a more realistic light, we are going to be at great risk because we will not be able to defend our society.
My question, in response to what you just said there is, what would you advise or what should President Biden be doing here? I mean, of course, they're going to have this discussion. They will meet face to face. But as you said, you're not sure if that's really going to be in the interest of the United States. What actions could President Biden take or the administration take to actually see relations improve or move the needle in any way so that they're a little more positive? Or is that not possible?
Well, we need to start imposing costs. And those costs have got to be severe because they've got to be commensurate with what China has been doing. So, for instance, we should be cutting off technical cooperation. We should be cutting off all aid and all trade and investment that relates to China's military, which we have yet to do. We should be making sure that we take down China's infrastructure in the U.S. that China will use to attack Americans. Remember, we found that lab at Reedley, California, which had at least 20 pathogens, according to the official account, and almost 1,000 mice that had been genetically engineered to spread disease. that shows that China is building the infrastructure to attack America from American soil. So, these are things which we absolutely have to do, and the administration has not been approaching them with the vigor that is necessary. If China sees political will on the part of the United States, then we can move the relationship in a better direction. But until we impose those costs, China is going to continue to delay. It's going to continue to engage in behavior which is unacceptable, and things are going to continue to get worse, as they have.
All right, Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War. Thank you so much for your time. Good to see you again. Have a good one.